I joined his team and I started making a lot of money. And I realized, I mean, I never thought in a million years, like if I was an actor and I made $100,000, I would have been like, I'm happy as a clam. And then all of a sudden I was making, you know, $300,000 a year. I just thought I was a pimp. So, and I was like 24.
Hey, thanks for being in the REC experience with your buddy Jazz, your girl Laura Alto Stewart. What's going on?
Hey.
How you been this week?
I'm great this week.
Busy?
Busy as always.
Got some time at home with Rudy. We don't talk about Rudy a lot.
Rudy is the love of my life, I must say. My dog, my puppy. Well, he's 4 years old. He's not a puppy, but...
Not a puppy anymore. He's a big boy.
I know, but he's like my baby. Yeah. He's and he's been in pain a little bit lately, so we've had to have him be on the leash walking instead of running because we thought
How much does he hate that?
Oh, he hates it. And then he has so much energy, and then he like eats my shoes and my socks and stuff because he didn't burn enough during his dog walk. So, you know.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Season 4, episode 2 with Tracy Tutor from $1 Million Listing LA. She brought the goods.
She sure did. So I'm a huge $1 Million Listing fan. I watch every episode right from the get-go, both New York and LA, because the houses are so ridiculous.
Okay.
Like it's just so like it's not a life I live or see.
Yeah.
Like we don't have homes like
The
that here. So it's just
Malibus
crazy. Yeah.
We're New York, somewhat similar to Toronto.
Yeah. Obviously the condos are huge that they're showing, but
a lot more expensive. Funny though, I think actually Toronto's heading that way.
I agree.
In terms of real estate values because of the population
But that's
growth.
why, so for LA, to me, it's like a whimsical world that I'm watching.
So Tracy's new.
It's her second season, and when she came on, and no one's ever sure when new people come on, but I think she brought such a good element to the show, just being one of the first females on these shows, because there were some other spin-offs that had some ladies, but she's the most calm of anybody. So it's funny to watch her.
You said calm. I haven't seen many episodes of like the newer seasons, but I follow her on Instagram, and I knew that her and I were going to connect quite well because she just has so much energy and she knows what she's talking about, and I love how much she's doing to empower women.
Well, and she's just an open book completely. Like there was really no question that you could have asked, and she was talking about her
she
divorce.
Invited us to her home. Like,
essentially, that's where she did the
house.
So it was really cool. She's an interesting woman, very inspirational. Her story, her journey on how she got to where, and just very real and down to earth.
Well, I love how she gave some tips and strategies, not only to women, but to men, to the younger generation when you're starting out in the real estate business, which we talk about it all the time, right, Laura, that whatever we're talking about, even in the real estate business, you can take it to any other business,
you can
right?
extrapolate over lots of industries for sure.
And she just spoke about how to work a room, how like what she did when she was starting out, just so much good came out of this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
You were going to say?
I was like, I liked how she spoke about when working a room, back to that point, about how you really have to know your audience. That's the most important part. And, not to be fake or anything like that, but understand who it is you're speaking to, certainly when you're in sales, and try and relate to them on their own level.
Love it, guys. As always, thanks for all the feedback for our season 4 premiere. It was huge. If you haven't seen that yet, what are you doing?
Go back.
Go back. And for this episode, we would love to hear more feedback. And, we had a couple of listeners that sent us an email with ideas and topics for future podcasts. We love that. Shows us that you're watching and listening. And
we're doing our best to get those people.
We try all the time. And so keep that coming. Alto, as always, thank you.
You bet.
To you, the viewer and the listener. Feedback, and thank you, and enjoy the show.
REC Experience presents Real Estate, Entrepreneurship, Leadership with your host, Jazz Takhar. The REC Experience podcast is now on air.
I am so excited to have Bravo's TV hit show star from $1 Million Listing LA, Tracy Tutor, on with us today. How are you doing, Tracy?
I'm absolutely awesome. Exhausted, but awesome.
Yeah, exhausted. What's been going on in your life the past week?
A lot of work. We're listing a bunch of houses. We just started shooting again, and I'm closing out a big new development project this summer. So, that's the plate is full. I couldn't be happier.
Well, huge congrats on all the success that you've had of recent. I definitely want to talk to you about the show. But I wanted to ask, how did you get into real estate? How did that whole world start for you?
Like every other person in Los Angeles, we start as an actor and then we end up selling real estate. It's actually true. Come full circle moment. Now I'm on TV. So I went to USC for undergrad. I studied theater. I wanted to go to New York when I graduated, and I ended up staying here because obviously this is where TV and pilots and film are really shot. So I worked in that field for a couple of years, and the whole starving actor thing was sort of rubbing me the wrong way. I have a degree, and I'm like, I really, see myself making more money. I want to be independent. And so a friend of mine had, we sat down and I said, like, what could we do? And, because right now I'm like waiting tables, and I went to USC, for crying out loud. So she said, we could sell real estate. We're both from LA, and, we grew up here. We know a lot of rich people. Like, we could totally nail this. So I went in for an interview at a company called Dalton Brown and Long, which was at the time a luxury boutique firm in West Hollywood. And I sat across from the manager and I said, I need to make $90,000 a year in order to survive. That was 19 years ago. That was a lot of money. Yeah. And he was like, you're 24. I don't understand how you think you're going to make $90,000 a year in your first year in real estate. I said, well, it's just what it is. He said, most agents make $30,000 a year their first, couple of years in the business. And I said, that just doesn't work for me. And he was like, you're hired. So what did I make my first 2 years in real estate? Is the question?
Yeah.
30.
So take me back to those first couple of years. What did you do when you started out?
I worked on my own. I really didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. So I didn't join a team. I didn't assist anybody. I was like, I'm just going to sell real estate because why not?
Right.
And so I learned the hard way that, my contacts and my network weren't going to hire me based on the fact that I had a license to sell. And it took me a couple years to realize that I probably should join a team. And 2 years later, I joined a friend of mine who's this fabulous gay man. Thank you so much, Mayor. This fabulous gay man who had sold out and sort of transformed this project called Sierra Towers in Los Angeles. It was like one of our biggest sort of condo projects in LA, like super hot in West Hollywood. All the celebrities were moving into the building, and he had transformed this from like a 1970s crappy building into this like incredible luxury product and was killing it. So I joined his team and I started making a lot of money. And I realized, I never thought in a million years, like if I was an actor and I made $100,000, I would have been like, I'm happy as a clam. And then all of a sudden I was making, $300,000 a year. I just thought I was a pimp. And I was like 24.
So for somebody who's listening, who is starting out, what's some tips you would give them, like in the real estate business?
Oh, Christ. Don't do what I did. Like, join a team from the beginning. Learn from someone that you actually respect and admire in a neighborhood that you want to sell in. Unfortunately for me, I'm not neighborhood specific. Mine's all networking. So I have clients from Malibu to the Hollywood Hills to Beverly Hills and the West Side. But I would hone in and work for an agent that I really respect in an area that I know I want to sell in. And remember, it's just as easy to sell it's just as easy to sell a $10 million house as it is to sell a $500,000 condo. So move to Beverly Hills and, figure it out.
Right. It's a matter of who you're rubbing shoulders with, the people that, as long as you do a good job, they'll...
And it's hustle.
Well, I'm glad that you said that word, hustle. I feel like some of in the younger, like in the millennials, that term is not really in their vocab. because they think that there's an overnight success. It's taken you years to get where you are. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the one thing I love about a millennial is that they're dreamers, and they have big aspirations, but they aren't, they haven't necessarily put in the grunt work to understand and appreciate what it takes to be, or how I got here. I get a lot of millennials that call me and want advice or DM me, and I try to get back to as many as I can. But, the truth is, like, it's luck meets preparation every single time. And you do have to think big and you do have to dream big, but it is going to require, particularly in our field, grunt work. The whole term of overnight success is really a bunch of bullshit. Most people that have success will tell you it didn't happen overnight. They were actors for 15 years, or in their business and then all of a sudden overnight, they became a success. It's like, no, it doesn't happen that way. Not in any industry.
Now, you mentioned DMing and trying to get back to as many people as you can. In the whole social world, I see that you do a lot, specifically on Instagram. Is that something that came very naturally to you, or how did that all start?
I mean, talk about like my fourth full-time job. I mean, for crying out loud, keeping up with it. I'm like, I haven't posted today, and I'm like scrolling through what the hell I'm going to post.
It's why I know you and I are going to get along, because I'm very similar to that. Yeah.
I mean, listen, how many flashback Fridays can a girl do? It's only Thursday. So it is. I try to be active on social because I have a lot of brokers that follow me, from around the country, and I speak to them, and I speak to a lot of women, and I think that that's a large part of my following, because they see me at 43. I'm a single mom. I'm successful, but I also have a life, and I think it's important to allow yourself to be 100% authentic. And that's, even signing up for the show, I was like, no, every once in a while, my sister will text me and be like, take that post down. You're having margaritas. This is not and I'm like, but yes, it is. It's exactly me when I'm in Mexico and I'm taking the weekend off of real estate to enjoy myself. And that's okay. And I think that's what speaks to people. You can create an image around yourself and that you're the successful broker. And, I see a lot of those profiles, millionaire broker, and their whole image is all this crap. And then they live in like a, 1,000 square foot apartment for $700 a month. And it's like, but that's not you. And ultimately that authenticity is lost. And I think the following then just gets lost too.
I mean, from afar, your authenticity is like so on point. I can tell you that I want to connect with you even more because you're so authentic. The way that you speak, the way that you move around, I could tell that's just who you are. If I ask your closest friends or any of your colleagues and coworkers,
my arms never stop moving. I'm working on that.
No, don't. It's who you are. I can't stop it either. Talking about single mom, having a life, work-life balance. I mean, you work your ass off. You do a lot of business. How are you trying? I found just doing this podcast for over a year now and meeting with a lot of high producers and just entrepreneurs. There's not really anybody who's figured it out. Are you kind of from that ilk as well?
This all boils around the word success, like how much success you want to have and what success means to you. I think maybe certain people define that differently. For me, success is having a great business that I make enough money to live the life that I want to live with my friends, my family, my children. So that includes shutting off when I have to. That means I take vacations to re-energize and have a good time. And listen, this could all be gone tomorrow. I could die. I could be hit by a truck. And I certainly don't want to go down being, a workaholic that, isn't embracing life. So for me, that because success is defined by, a few different things in my life, not just work, I do try to take time off and shut the phone off at 8:00. And, unfortunately with our job, that's very difficult to do.
Right. And so do you try to take like a Sunday off, or is that one of the busier days because of open houses? Or
if I work, I'll notice that if I work for like 10, 12, 14 days straight without a day, like a real day off, I will absolutely like just shut it down. I'll shut it down on a Tuesday. I don't care. Because our business is 7 days a week. So, you know, sometimes you do have to work weekends, and that's okay. I always tell my partner, Gina, you're your worst enemy because you're a workaholic. So you're like, well, she says, if I don't do it, you're not going to. And I'm like, because I have boundaries. You know, like everybody has to, that's what everybody has to do for themselves. They have to create those boundaries and just go, I'm just not going to do it. And if that means that, you know, so a client, well, if you're delivering, my dad said this best actually. If you are delivering from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., you shouldn't have to work after that. If you're 100% in. And the truth is, like, if you are fully gung-ho and committed from the minute that you wake up, he goes, you know, if you're working at 8 o'clock at night, you're working stupid.
Right. If you go all in, like your father said, from that 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever it is, you deserve some time off. You need to give yourself that break and sharpen that saw, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and make sure that the hours that you're using are those are the valuable hours, and make sure you're using them accurately and being efficient. Like I hate inefficiency more than anything.
So how have you gotten more efficient over the years as you gotten that much more busier?
I've had to start a team, really. I mean, I was really a one-man show. I mean, most of the guys that are on the show were early in their career when they started $1 Million Listing. Right. So not me. I had been, you know, I had a career that had been long-standing. And so it was a little bit of a shock to the system. They sort of grew as their, you know, following grew, as their client base grew, they grew with it. I sort of came in and went, holy shit, how am I going to manage this? And so I brought on a partner, and I now have a team of 5 or 6, and, you know, we're sort of steadily growing and making sure that we have systems in place so that we can, but I got to tell you, it was a shock to the system, you know, doing the show and all of a sudden having, you know, leads that are coming from it that we have to filter through, and what's real and what's not. And it's a lot to manage.
I'm sure people just wanted your time just because, you know, you were necessarily on the show, not really bringing you much value, and you have to kind of sift through that, right?
A lot of it, yeah.
How did the show come about for you?
Josh Altman and I worked together, and he obviously has been on the show for a long time. He's a riot, and he's more funny off camera than on, unless he's with me. Anyway, no, he had said, you know, I called him for a showing on one of his listings, and he said, you know, we're shooting that for the show. Are you cool having it on camera? And I said, sure. So he's like, well, we're shooting it today. So can your client look at it today? And I said, really, dude? Like, come on. Let a girl get a blow dry? Like, so I didn't have a chance to really do any of that. But nevertheless, I showed the property. I guess it was on season 9.
Okay.
And we had a really good banter on the show, as we do in real life. Right. And so my client ended up making an offer on the property. And so we did more than one scene together. And sort of after we wrapped, the producers came to me and said, you know, we really liked you and your dynamic with Josh, and you seem really comfortable in front of the camera. You know, we've been looking for a woman for a long time. Would you be interested?
How's it been with a bunch of guys on the show? I mean, is that how your office is already set up? But how's that all been?
It's different. It's different being the only woman on the show. In one sense, it's an advantage. But, you know, from a different perspective, it's a lot of pressure on me because there's a sort of a microscope. As, you know, being a woman on an all male-dominated show, I sort of stick out a little bit. Yeah. And that's to, you know, not always to my advantage.
Obviously, the easiest to look at, that's for sure. You're very
well, thank you.
Yeah. I've seen some posts where you were at a conference empowering women.
Sure.
Obviously, being a woman, I'm sure that's important to you. Can you talk a little bit about what you discussed at the conference? Because I have a lot of women listeners getting into entrepreneurship, into real estate, into business, and you're obviously kicking ass with what you're doing. What's some things that you might have discussed at that conference, if you're okay to share it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm all about women empowerment. It's a big part of my business, and I like giving back to women that are getting into business. And so I was an honor to be a part of that conference, and I introduced Dottie Herman, who was the CEO of Douglas Elliman, and is definitely, her story was fascinating. But I spoke for about 15 minutes and really talked to women about letting go of the fear of everything that you've done in your life leading up to now. I think a lot of what holds women back, particularly whether you're a 28-year-old girl getting into real estate or starting your own business, or you're a woman coming out of the divorce and you're getting back into work because you quit and you were raising 3 kids while your husband was working. Whatever your story is, I think it's just letting go of the fear of what has gotten you to where you are today and being honest. So for me, it was being an actor and, doing films when I was younger and stupid, and God, I was terrible. And I made a lot of stupid choices that I was terrified that would hold me back being a professional in the real estate industry. And so, that was something that I had to own up to. And I also told stories of my failures in real estate, starting with, my own sister not buying a house through me and how difficult that was. And, I think there's a lot that we can take as women from our history and our past that we sort of push away instead of totally embracing. And I think once you embrace it and you have no fear and you just say, fuck it, then you have absolutely nothing to lose. And that makes you walk into any room and open the door and be like, yo, I'm here. And
I so love that about you, because you decided to go all in, push all the chips in, and kind of see where they fall. And then I'm sure as you go through failures even today, you figure it out, right? You try to shut out the outside bullshit noise and move on to the next adventure. What's exciting you now in your life? Like, what's happening? What's going on?
Quite a bit. I'm single right now, so that's a new one for me. And I'm dating a little bit, and that's fun. And I'm just spending time with my girls. Like right now, my off time is spent with my children and my friends, and I enjoy that. It's the one thing that sort of reinvigorates me when I'm working my tail off and burning the candle at both ends, so to speak.
How old are the kids?
13 and 10.
And that's obvious. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old boy, 2 boys.
2 boys, 2 girls.
Is it tougher at 10 and 13?
I don't know. Girls are different than boys. I mean, my girls are so well mannered. They're awesome. I beat them daily. That's how they're that way. No, they're a little ballers, and I see my husband in them, or rather my ex-husband in them, and I see myself in them, and
right.
We make mistakes along the way, and we're getting through the co-parenting thing, but the truth is, like, they're becoming their own little women, and I love to see them challenge me and have opinions, and I think that's cool. I want to raise them to be little badasses.
I love that. Just like mom. Is mom the big TV star in the house? Like, how does that all play out in your own?
I don't think they cared at all. Like, candidly, like, they really just didn't get it until some of their friends at school started like wanting me to like post pictures of them and, and tag them. And so then they were kind of like, all right, my mom's cool, man. She's like, I'm like, meanwhile, I can barely get a reservation at like the hot restaurants in LA, but like in an airport when I'm with my kids and someone recognizes me, they're like,
Now, I always like to ask my guests, Tracy, what's some failures or even one failure that you had to deal with, and how did you deal with it?
I was talking earlier about my sister not hiring me. This was, again, many, many years ago. And I spoke about this at the conference. At first, I was like, I almost quit the business because I was like, how could she, if my own family doesn't value me as a broker, who else is going to? And it really discouraged me, and I had a really, really tough time with it. But ultimately, after giving it some thought and doing some self-examination, like, I was in no place at the time to think about it. I had just had a baby. I was breastfeeding Scarlett. I had postpartum depression. I was taking time off work. Like, I wasn't focused on what she needed or her house or anything. So the truth is, I was a little bit entitled. And I think after some self-examination, I realized it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I think we need to be constantly reminded that there's a reason our failures happen. It's not just, like things happen for a reason. I think in order to make me a stronger broker and to kind of, be a no apologies, the person that I am now. And, when I walk into a room, I own it, is because I had those really difficult times. And it's because I failed time and time again. I didn't get the listing. I'd go up against, Josh Altman or whatever other broker, and I wouldn't get it. And I'd always think, God, is it because I'm a female, or is it because of this reason or that reason? It's like, you didn't get it because you weren't good enough. You just didn't kill it. And for whatever reason, that person in that moment didn't want to hire you. They chose to hire someone else, and you have to face that. And it just makes you more self-aware. And, it's what, gets me more jobs today. I walk into every room and I know what I'm walking into, and I just do, again, the best that I absolutely can.
I picture you walking into a listing pretty confidently now.
But, sometimes that confidence can be off-putting to people. You have to kind of, who you're meeting with. And I talked about this at the conference as well. It's like, know your room.
Right.
Before you walk in, know what you're walking into as much as you possibly can. And, once you get in there, if the room shifts, pay attention to those cues, because I can't be who I am with you right now with everybody in every room that I walk into. That can be off-putting to a very challenging, dominating man who's the CEO of a big company, or to a woman or if I'm meeting with a couple and the woman is intimidated by me for whatever reason. You have to pick up on those cues, and you have to be able to switch your game up.
Now, in terms of actual real estate sales, if someone's in that ballpark of doing homes, so our average home in Toronto right now is slightly above $1 million. But if they want to get into our luxury market where Drake lives and some of our top CEO lives, playing in that 14, 15, 18, $20 million range, what's a tip or two that they might be able to take from Tracy's playbook?
Remember though, guys, that, those $14 and $15 million houses in Toronto don't sell as quickly as those $1 million. So embrace what you are good at and recognize your strengths in those areas and kill that, because you could be just as successful as the agent that's selling 3 or 4 of those $10 to $15 million houses if you're turning and burning the $1 million ones. So that's my first thing. Secondly, when you're playing in that field, it's a very competitive field. You have to be as sophisticated as your clients. And a lot of times that's very difficult to do. I mean, when you're talking about savvy, intelligent buyers who have invested their money well in real estate, you have to be just as savvy. They have to believe that you understand the difference between, a Calcutta marble and the onyx that they chose for a backsplash in their, wine room. There's details that your typical agent selling the $1 million home isn't going to understand. So that means knowing architects, knowing interior design, understanding construction, and knowing the market and the sales in the area.
What is the market like in LA in the micro markets that you made mention?
I was just going to say, which market?
I love it, because we get the question all the time from so how's the market? It's like, well, we have 100 micro markets in the greater Toronto area.
Right. And LA is very much like that. I would say the under $10 million market is definitely moving. The hottest market is always going to be under 3. Okay. We're still seeing, multiple offers in those markets. There's more buyers in those markets, obviously. The ultra luxury is doing well and still selling, but when you start selling homes at $100 million, there's only a few buyers for those. So, and there's an influx of that inventory here. So as much as we've seen a huge increase, and Los Angeles is still really a baby in terms of the international market, we're where everybody wants to be right now. From an international perspective and a national perspective, I think people want to come to Los Angeles. So there's money and international money and domestic money coming in every single day.
Do you have a lot of investors that like to purchase in LA? Like, is there a market for even condos that can be rented out to tenants? Is that, because Toronto's really big in that right now for the last 6 to 7 years? And I wonder what the LA market is like.
LA has always traditionally been single family dwellings. We didn't have a lot of vertical living. I mean, yes, there's always, smaller condo projects that, or apartments that people are going to do on the one-off. But only very recently in the last 3 to 4 years have we started to see a trend towards vertical living. And I don't think it's going away. I think that LA's out of space. And so I think we're going to continue to see that new projects coming out of the ground. I mean, right now, Altman is, I think, on 6 or 7 different projects that we have coming out of the ground. The one that I'm on being the first to complete the addition, the residences at the West Hollywood Addition, which is a luxury brand that is in New York, now obviously Los Angeles, the UK, and there's several different other several different other countries that they're beginning to open up and consider.
What's some goals for the future for Tracy? Next couple of years, what is it that you want to accomplish?
I have always had a really great passion for interior design. And on the show, I do I'm very micro controlling in the staging department. So I'd like to kind of, get my hands wet in that universe and see if I can't partner up with I have a lot of interior design friends. I'd like to partner up and see if we can't do a line together. And I really do want to build my own house.
Awesome. Well, I'm knocking on wood for you that happens soon. I want to thank you and be very, very appreciative of your time that you had.
Of course.
If you ever make it out to Toronto, please look me up, look my team up. I want to make sure that we show you Toronto and treat you well.
Oh, great.
Have you been to Toronto before?
I haven't. I do have some fans in Canada. So, who knows? Maybe we'll come out there and do a conference or something.
Awesome. I'll look you, I'll make sure I get connected with you. Thank you for allowing us in your home. And so
you're welcome.
I really do appreciate it. It's beautiful. I see why you like the interior designing and stuff. It's gorgeous. Thank you so much for your time, Tracy. And I'll make sure that I give all your social links and how to get a hold of you on the show notes.
That'd be great.
Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you so much. I wanted to introduce you to my executive producer and co-host, Laura Stewart, who's a huge, huge fan of yours.
Coming around.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much. I've learned some great stuff today, so very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's fun, you guys.
This has been the REC Experience Podcast with Jazz Takhar, an REC Canada production.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the REC Experience. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Click here to watch and experience more videos from REC.